Tacos?
Yeah, I just want some tacos. That's all.
What is up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of The Long Lost Podcast. I'm Lyra.
I'm Lana.
And we're going to be talking about Season 1, Episode 17, in translation. But first, how's it going, Lana?
I think it's going pretty alright.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think. It's hard to tell sometimes, but
I understand that, yeah.
But I think it's okay. I was at the beach, and we saw an osprey.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah, it was like flying around, and we were like, that is not a seagull. What is that? And we were both just like looking at each other, and we were like, is that? And we were both like, is that an osprey? We both kind of recognized it as an osprey. Mm-hmm. And it was. We looked it up, and we were like, this picture is totally that bird. That was cool. And then we kept watching it, and it fucking dive bombed out of the sky into the shallows of the ocean.
Yeah.
And we were like, wow, that was really cool that we got to see that. And it was the direction we were walking, and we just kept walking. And it totally caught a fish. And it was just sitting there, getting a little bit dry in the little barely wet waves, holding a fucking fish.
That's crazy.
And we walked right by it. We walked like within 5 feet of it and just didn't give a fuck because it's used to people, I'm sure. But
that's awesome.
It was really cool. Yeah, it was really cool.
I would love to see an osprey. It's crazy. They have a global population, I think. Like, there's one species of osprey, and they're just like...
Yeah, they're all over... They're on like every continent except Antarctica, I think.
It's crazy. They're just like OP.
So that was cool to see. That was exciting.
That's how I felt when I saw bald eagles. I was like, wait, there's no way. But yes, they were bald eagles.
I don't like bald eagles, personally.
You don't like them? Is that just because you hate this country?
It's partially that, I'm sure, but they feel too ostentatious for me. I like sleek, elegant, kind of, I don't know if subtly colored, but, sleek, elegant, classy looking things. And I feel like a bald eagle is just like, fuck y'all, look at me, I'm all different looking and big and shit. And I'm like, you're not cool. An osprey is like nice and sleek and cool looking.
I like them. I think they get a bad reputation by association,
Of America? Yeah, I mean, sure. I just don't, I don't know. I don't like their white head, and their bigness doesn't look, to me, oh wow, let's get into this. Okay. Of the fishing birds of prey, a bald eagle is more like a lion, and an osprey is more like a tiger or a jaguar. Mm-hmm. I much prefer a tiger or jaguar over a lion, personally. That's all.
You know about, like, how bald eagles, like, the cliche, like, eagle sound you hear with, like, America is, like, not how bald eagles sound?
Yeah,
it's like a different hawk or whatever, because bald eagles actually, they just sound like...
Yeah. How are you?
Today is good.
Oh, okay. That's something.
Yeah, I got out of the house early. I got a free vegan donut. That was sick.
Cool.
Do you want to talk about this episode of Lost?
Let's do it.
Let's fucking go. All right. I guess, what are your feelings on this episode?
All right, so I felt like the last episode was an amazing episode of television.
It was great. Yeah.
This episode, I felt like, was an alright episode of Lost.
Yeah. I feel extremely, like, middle of the road.
Like, so mid, right? Like,
yeah. Very, very mid.
Astonishingly mid. Yes.
There's, like,
I agree.
Some stuff where I was like, I really don't like that. There's some parts where it's like, okay, yeah,
Well, no, for me, there was one, and we'll get into it. Obviously, that's what we do on this podcast. We get into it.
Yeah. Like too much. That's like why it's the
probably,
Lost
honestly.
podcast.
Yeah. There was one thing that was a standout in this episode, and you will know what it was for me, I assume. What did I find? What did I take out of this episode being like, those were good parts?
What would I assume would be it?
Out of this episode, what am I going to come out and be like, oh, I really liked those parts, and the rest of it was so mid?
Maybe you liked parts with Saeed.
Oh, no, wrong.
I'm honestly trying to remember what the fuck happens in this episode.
Every scene with Locke I thought was great.
I was going to say that.
I thought Locke was amazing in this episode and so good. And every scene with him, because he was in it and was being him, was great. And the rest of it, whatever. It's fine. It wasn't terrible, but it was just fine.
Well, let's get into it. So we basically start in a flashback And this episode, it's flashback to Jin talking with Sun's dad, who we know is like some kind of rich business guy. And basically they have a conversation where Jin is like, I want to marry your daughter because she's the best. And Sun's dad is like, basically like kind of pressures Jin into working for him. Is that like basically what happens here?
It's I understand your not confusion, but kind of like struggling to even describe it because it's not well portrayed. I feel like he wasn't pressuring him specifically into working for him. He's like, why do you want to marry my daughter? And he's like, she's the best, and I'm willing to do anything for her. And the guy's like, what's your ambitions in life or whatever? And he's like, I want to run a hotel, I think, right? And
yeah.
And then the guy somehow is like, come work for me. Or Jin says like, I'd totally come work for you. And then the guy's like, why would I let my daughter, marry somebody who will give up their own ambition so easily? It just didn't feel coherent in a way that was satisfying at all and didn't really feel like it had a strong purpose.
I guess it's like the thing that we're learning is that Jin, he wants to marry Sun. He wants to marry her a lot.
We also get Jin saying that his father is dead.
Yes.
I don't know about you, and you've already seen this, but immediately when he said that, I was just going, that's a lie because of how you said it, and I know how this show works.
Uh-huh.
I feel like last episode, we talked about how well they set everything up, and it was done subtly and naturally, and it all felt not like that. Not like I wasn't having those moments where I was like, oh, okay, something is said in the first 90 seconds. I know exactly the twist that's going to happen in the last 5 minutes.
Sure.
And that was a really wonderful experience and feeling. And in this one, again, it's like, oh, okay, I'm being telegraphed to that, no, Jin's father is totally alive.
Totally. Every fucking character has dad problems in this show.
Yeah. I mean, do we think maybe that might say something about the people making the show? I don't know.
Yeah, it very well could. Anyway, so then we are back on the island, and Sun is like gonna go swimming, and she's like in a swimsuit, and Jin is a dick and is like trying to like cover her up or whatever with like a shirt, and then like that kind of gets like intense into kind of like an argument and shit. And, like, people on the beach, everybody else is kind of noticing and is like, damn, this is kind of fucked up. And then, like, Michael comes over to sort of, like, intervene. Because, like, I think Jin, like, might, like, grab Sun or something like that.
There's a bit of a physical escalation, and that's when Michael comes over.
Yeah, and he sort of gets between them and he's like, hey, don't fucking do that. And then Sun, like, slaps Michael and looks like everybody looks really intense, and then they all go their separate ways.
She slaps Michael and, grabs, very clearly physically aligns herself with Jin.
Yeah.
And grabs him, and they walk off. How do you feel about this scene?
How do I feel about this scene?
Do you feel about this scene? Because I kind of don't.
Yeah, it's the way in which this episode is mid is mostly that I just, like, don't feel a lot about the things that occur in it.
I so agree. I'm like, okay, it weirdly reminds me of a lot of times in the flashbacks where you feel like you're just being presented with information, but it's not really connecting emotionally or really even like driving the plot forward at all. It's just you're being presented with information and you're going, all right, I guess that happened. And it felt like that was seeping into the island stuff in this episode too, where I'm just like, okay, this thing happened.
For sure.
Part of that's probably just the writing. Part of it's also like, let's think about this particular scene, right? It's Jin, Sun, and then Michael comes over. There's other people on the periphery, but it's mostly them.
Yeah.
And when we talk about the scenes that we love so much, it's well-developed characters getting to interact with each other in unique ways based on their dynamics. And Jin and Sun, we have not gotten much of them at all, and Michael's characterization has been pretty poor. So maybe that's a lot of it too. It's just like, it all just doesn't have any weight to it, really.
Yeah, it is hard when you just don't feel super invested in the characters who... Yeah, there's not a lot of, like... This is something that I think we talked about during Sun's episode and continues to be a problem in this one, where it just feels like the writing team doesn't have a good grapple on, like, what domestic abuse like,
Yeah.
means.
Yeah.
And that, like, people who are abusers aren't, like, I don't know. We'll talk about it more later. But the thing that is cool in this scene is Michael doing a thing that doesn't suck. I like that.
That is one feeling I had as I was watching it. I was like, Michael, I don't know if it's that I don't know what you're doing is right, but, like, I think you don't really know what you're doing here. And, like, when Sun slaps him, immediately that is read that she is protecting Michael. She's not mad at Michael. She is protecting Michael from Jin.
Totally.
And that's cool. You're right. With the Michael thing and those are 2 points where I am like, oh, this is something. Gives me a little tingle of feelings of, like, Sun is smart.
Yeah.
Sun knows how to navigate the situation.
Right.
And it felt like Michael was kind of just blundering into something that he didn't... Like, what was his plan, I guess? His plan was to physically stop Jin. Jin, I feel like, could beat up anybody in this group. I feel like Jin is top-tier beater-upper.
I like that the characterization is that Michael, like, doesn't.
Just dives in
just
anyway.
Like, right. He just, like, he's like, I see this thing happening that is fucked up, and I feel like I should intervene. And then he just, like, does.
I did like that for him. I agree. One kind of small, kind of actually, I kind of feel like it's not small, but it might be a thing that bothers me more than other people. So we're getting translations in the flashbacks.
Yeah.
And then in this scene, literally, so they are speaking Korean throughout the scene.
Yeah.
We get a translation for Korean spoken at the beginning of the scene, and then we abruptly stop getting translations for the Korean that's being spoken.
Yeah.
And I think that's just objectively bad storytelling and filmmaking. Like, I think that's just objectively bad. You should not do that. That's a terrible idea to do that. It's bad enough having translations in the flashbacks and then not on the island, but I'll forgive that. But literally within the same scene, being like, here's a translation for the language, and then, never mind, we're not going to translate this part for you.
Yeah, it's weird because, like, I feel like there's ways to do that intentionally, where you're like, okay, the camera during this part is in this particular character's perspective, and they don't understand, blah, blah, blah.
Sure, yeah.
Like,
okay, yeah.
But, like, I feel like if this episode is supposed to be, like, Jin's episode,
then we should be
understanding what he's saying and what Sun is saying.
Right?
It's also, like, the fact that we don't hear what he's saying. We don't really hear what he's saying when he's, like, covering her up and stuff, right? So we don't really, like, understand the context of their altercation. Yeah, but that's what I mean, is, like, we can assume it, but it's like, if we're supposed to actually empathize with this guy, even if he's doing something shitty, we should, like, know.
No, you're totally right. It's bad. It's one of those things where it's not just... I understand executing something bad on the day or whatever, because it's hard to make things like that. I'm going to try to be forgiving of that, but this was very clearly a choice that they had time to consider, and...
Oh, for sure.
And did not do a very good job being thoughtful about their storytelling, I think, which is not shocking at this point for me in a watch of Lost, but still disappointing.
Yeah.
It's literally a Jin episode. Yeah.
I know, seriously.
Like, imagine, so this is a bit of a spoiler, but later on we'll get a small snippet of a Jin POV not understanding English, and the English is all garbled for the viewer, so we don't understand it either. That's a cool technique. I think that's fine to use, and it's cool. Imagine we got a whole fucking episode like that.
I know. You saying that, I was just thinking the same thing. Like, that would be an awesome way to do a Jin episode, is like,
ooh,
we actually don't know what the fuck is, like, we get to see what his perspective is, right?
Yeah, and maybe we get to sympathize a bit with somebody who, doesn't have any... They're all talking all the time and just doesn't have any notion of what is going on there, so feels defensive and feels whatever, and yeah.
You could also use that for doing, like, some cool Lost stuff, because, like, maybe there's, like, some kind of weird mystery thing, but we're seeing it from Jin's perspective, so there's, like, additional things we don't understand.
That can't be shared within the group, yeah.
Yeah, and we're like, oh, what the fuck could be happening? And then, like, next episode, we see, like, that scene play out, but it's from one of the characters speaking English's perspective, or... I don't know.
No, totally. If you want to get even more into that, you'd have to do it thoughtfully, which means they wouldn't probably do it, because, but you could do something where English-speaking people get a piece of a puzzle. Jin gets another piece of the puzzle. And as the viewer, we understand how they fit together, but they can't fit them together.
That would be real. That's a really cool idea. See, like, why is this shit not... I feel like they just didn't want to, like, give key pieces of, like, plot to, like, these characters, you know?
Yeah. No, and it's why I'm not going to change how I feel about these other characters, but it is something that's on my mind when I talk about how much I love Locke and how great his scenes are. And Sawyer just had an amazing episode that was really, really good. And I'm like, oh, I'm talking a lot about how great these white men are.
Yeah. It's like really the exception to that is like Saeed, right? Who is also
Saeed, yeah.
an interesting character. A lot of that's the performance too, you know. But you're totally right in that like the people who are getting the more thoughtful writing are the white characters and often like the white men.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, the scene, I was a lot talking about the scene and a lot talking not about the scene, but the scene was like, whatever. It happened. Michael confronted Jen about being abusive to Sun. But...
yeah. Then we get our lost title, so that was our cold open, I guess. And then, like, the next scene, okay, Jin and Sun are, like, at the caves or whatever, and Jin is just like, is something going on with you and Michael? And Sun's like, nope.
Yeah.
And that leads us into a flashback where it's like their wedding day. It's before they're getting married. They both look really happy about the whole like wedding stuff. Sun talks about is like, oh, I'm sorry your dad's dead. I bet that he probably would be cool if he was here. And Jin's like, yeah, too bad he's dead.
Jin says. It's Jin that says this, right? Not Sun. Says, I'm sure wherever he is, he's proud of me.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, okay, thank you, writers. I already got the message. You didn't need to assault me with a fucking like frying pan to the skull. Like, thank you.
Wherever he is, which is I definitely mean like, you know, if he's in hell or something.
Yeah,
not like
in the afterlife, totally, not on this earth.
Yeah. And then we also learn, like, they're going to skip their honeymoon because Jin is going to, like, management training for Sun's dad or whatever.
Yeah.
So, like, overall, this is another scene where I'm like, yep, that was information. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
I really wish that I could feel the tragedy of these characters, like, romance.
Yeah, that would be cool. I would enjoy that.
Yeah. That would be cool.
I mean, I would enjoy it, and I would also very much not enjoy it because of how I feel about that sort of stuff.
Sure. But at least it would be effective, right?
Yeah, it would be feelings. Yeah, it wouldn't just be like, I feel like I just watched a fucking slideshow presentation.
Then, okay, the next thing that happens is we're back on the island, and Michael's working on the raft, and Sun is like, hey, sorry I slapped you. I had to protect you from my husband because he's fucking crazy.
And then Michael says, oh, no problem. That totally makes sense. I understand. That was a somewhat reasonable thing to do. Now that you mention it, we're totally cool. Right?
Is that what he says?
Right?
I think he actually says,
right?
That's not my problem. It's your problem.
Oh, yeah. He does say that. My bad.
It's pretty dumb. It's also like, I don't know. Whatever. It's,
yeah?
I'm just thinking about how, like, Michael
sucks. I'm sorry, but he does.
Well, yes, it does suck that he's just like, oh, you're saying your husband, like, might kill me? Well, I don't give a shit. That's your issue. Like, that you have a murderous husband that you're clearly terrified of or whatever.
Well, and from my reading of this, he's genuinely offended and hurt by the slap.
Yeah, I get that too.
What is your issue? Like, he's so bad. It reminds me of stuff that he's got going on with Walt sometimes, where it's like, you're such an emotional baby. Like,
yeah.
He needs to understand that other people also exist in the world that he is occupying and are acting in ways for their own reasons. And that not everything is just like, fuck you, Michael, or I like you, Michael. That it doesn't, everybody else's actions doesn't come down to, I'm with you, Michael, or I'm against you, Michael.
Totally.
It just doesn't, he has very low emotional intelligence, and it's annoying to watch.
Yeah. It's annoying. Agreed. Then, God, this episode is so mid. It
really is.
It's so nothing.
Even the scene with the Sun and Michael, it's just like, okay, that happened.
Yeah, it's so much of it is like that. So a lot of the mid scenes, I'm just gonna I just gotta keep the momentum going. the next thing that happens, basically Jin is just like hitting rocks he's at their little golf course, and he's hitting rocks with a golf club, and Hurley walks up and basically talks at him and is like, hey man, I want to be your friend. And then Jin doesn't react, and then he's like, well, whatever, I didn't even care. And then he walks away. That's it. And it's like,
it's
whatever.
So bad.
Yeah.
It's so dumb.
It's very dumb. Hurley's dumb.
Yeah, he's got fishing poles, and he's just like, he doesn't even really mime that much. Like, hey, come with me and we both fish. He doesn't do any miming. He's just holding them and speaking in English.
Yeah, like as if
it's so bad.
Jin is gonna like understand what he's saying.
He also, this is just another thing where I'm like, it's disappointing because, again, I'm not an expert in writing, but I've read a lot and consumed a lot of media, so I know some things. Like, you shouldn't have a character walk up to somebody who is blowing off steam by taking golf swings on rocks and say, hey buddy, it seems like you need to relax, because that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
It's just bad. It's just like, don't do that.
Yeah.
Have him be chopping wood and all pissed off and sweaty or something. You know what I mean? Like
have him do a thing that seems like he's upset or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And that it's very, he's burying himself in his work, so to speak. And be like, hey, let's go hit some golf balls. You don't walk up to him while he's hitting golf balls and go, let's relax. Like, Hurley, you made the golf course for relaxing. That's you did that.
He's doing the relaxing thing.
It's so weird. It's just so strange. Where I'm like, did you all not read this after you wrote it? Were you on a tight deadline? You had to crank this shit out in like 45 minutes? You had to have an all fucking episode written? Like, it's weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, next motherfucking scene, I guess, right?
Yeah, so the next scene, Shannon is like tying some ropes to some shit. I don't know, fixing a tent or helping with the raft, maybe. And then basically, Saeed comes up and the two of them kind of like flirt about ropes, and Shannon's like, oh, maybe we should have some time alone together with some rope and see what happens. How do you feel about this?
It's terrible. This is the not mid parts. This is the terrible parts.
I know. I'm honestly happy to get to this just so there's something to fucking say.
Like, it's so... Okay, so there's different levels of it too, right? First of all, I really like seeing platonic relationships between different gendered people, because turns out that happens a lot in life.
It is possible. Yeah.
That you can be friends with somebody and want to spend a lot of time with them and not want to be in a romantic relationship with them. And I really get frustrated when that's not reflected in the media that I am consuming. Like, it just isn't fun to see that. So that was disappointing, because up until now, I genuinely, maybe I was being naive or something, but I was genuinely like not reading Saeed and Shannon's relationship as leading to this. I wasn't.
I knew where this was going the whole time. So,
and I was happy with it then. I was like, oh, it's cute. Like, look how sweet Saeed is being to his friend. That's so sweet.
Yeah. And
now it's just shit. And on top of that, the flirting is just terrible. It's just terrible flirting. It's like, what? Ew.
Yeah.
Ew. Whoever wrote this, like, ew. I hope you're not married. Like, ew.
It is like,
it's so functional.
Ew.
It's so we want these characters that they looked at their fucking outline and then went, these characters are supposed to be getting together. Shit, do we have the woman on the writing staff today? No, we don't. Oh fuck, we're gonna have to do it. Like, it's so bad.
It's also like, I feel like it doesn't take account of like either of their histories,
which is weird because they do have a history.
They have a history together. It's also like, it's not taking account of like, it's just, it feels like it just could be kind of anybody, is kind of the thing that feels bad about it to me.
No,
is that
you're totally right about that.
Because it's like, I don't know.
Well, and if you want to do that, I understand being in this situation. Like, your kid is a freak theory. I'm totally cool with it as a theory, or if it is implemented narratively, I'm cool with that too. I don't feel like, with specifically Saeed and Shannon, I would even be, I would be annoyed by it maybe, but I would be a lot better about it if it was like, oh, we're close friends. And also we're going to cuddle and have sex.
Sure.
But the romantic element just doesn't need to be there. And it very much does feel like, well, there's nobody else. We're on this island. Let's be romantic together. It's like, do you need that in this situation? It doesn't feel good.
It also like doesn't feel like a situation where it's like Saeed just kind of comes up and then they're just like, now they're flirting. Where I feel like there's no like tension in it either. So it doesn't work as like kind of like maybe they were like doing the kind of stuff they've been doing. They're working together on something and they're kind of like alone and some tension comes up, right? Like that's one thing you could do, or you could do maybe, they start noticing something romantic about each other that they're
tying ropes and their hands touch and then they look at each other.
It's like fucking something. I don't know.
No, you're right. And that is part of what I think to me made it feel so functional and so pragmatic rather than natural. Is it's just like the rest of this fucking episode. It's just like, hello, audience. Now is the time where we tell you where this is going. And I'm like, cool, thanks for the PSA, I guess. Like, what? Okay.
It's frustrating that it feels like the conflict that does happen about like, oh, should they get together or not, feels very dumb when I feel like there's actually a lot of things that you could do that would be interesting character things, and they just don't do that.
They had options. It's not like they didn't have options.
Yeah.
They went to the thing. And I feel like, again, this will happen throughout this episode in different kinds of ways. But it's like they went to the thing that I feel like you only go to if you really wrote yourself into a tough spot. But that's not the case. They just picked the obvious worst option out of so many options.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. Because if I can identify things that are problems, a writer writing for a being produced television series that has been picked up really ought to also be able to recognize those things.
Yeah, it's like, I genuinely feel like these characters are getting paired together in this way just because, like, the actors are both attractive, and they were just like, we gotta have more characters fucking on the island.
Well, in that case, even, I wonder how much of it was a writing decision versus, like, a producing or studio decision.
I know that, that's always a balance,
I mean, even if it is, though, I would hope that you would be able to take that bad instruction from a studio and implement it in a better way.
Yeah.
This episode really does just feels phoned in to me.
It feels phoned in a lot of ways, totally.
I'm unsure if even feeling like that is giving the people who are behind this episode too much credit. That they could have done so much better and just didn't care to. Maybe they tried really hard on this one and they just suck. I don't know, but it feels very phoned in.
Yeah, it definitely does. It's like they really the writing effort does not feel evenly distributed.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the next thing? What's the next thing that happens?
Jack and Michael?
Yeah, it's like Walt and Michael are Michael's working on the boat. Walt is sort of there, and Michael like talks at Walt about New York and buildings and stuff, and Walt's like, yeah, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, and the thing that happens again, which you always point out, and it's always true, it's like Walt isn't immediately excited about the same thing Michael's excited about, and that hurts Michael's feelings.
Yeah.
Which is fucked up. As a child.
He doesn't know how to just fucking, like, ask questions or something, to just figure out what your son is interested in. Shit. You even, like, had a moment like that and then failed. It's so fucking frustrating.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and there's two ways he can go. He can try and figure out what Walt is interested in. He could also do more work to try and share things with Walt that might interest Walt in the things that Michael's interested about. And he doesn't do that. He just states them, and then Walt goes, I don't really care. And he doesn't go, oh, well, let me tell you some cool stuff about it. He just goes, well, fuck you too, kid. Yeah. Like, it sucks.
Anyway, Walt runs off to play with the dog, which, like, makes a lot of sense. And then Jack is like, hey, your raft is looking pretty good. And then basically Jack brings up the question of, like, so who all is going on this boat? And Michael's like, well, there's only room for 4 people, and it's me, Michael, and apparently Sawyer managed to get onto the boat, but there's one open spot left.
Jack's really mad that Michael let Sawyer on. And I'm like, why wouldn't he? Like, I don't, what?
Yeah, I don't really get that either. I guess it's just,
He's like,
it
you
is
sold
weird.
a spot? He's all indignant about it. And I'm like, yeah, what do you mean? Sawyer had stuff that Michael wanted to make it, so he let him come along. Like, this all makes sense, Jack.
Maybe Jack is like, you should be taking, I don't know, because it's weird. It's unclear whether Jack thinks this is a good idea or not. I feel like in the past, he's been like, not about this raft idea, but like...
But the raft is looking good now. He didn't expect
pretty...
the raft to look this good.
Yeah,
I didn't either.
Again, a raft is understating this thing. It's like, it's a boat.
Yeah.
It is a boat made out of like bamboo and plane parts, but it like has a cabin and like shit. It's like a real piece of engineering.
What I felt Jack's thing was coming at it from a moral point of like, it's immoral to sell a spot on this. And I'm like, it just feels like a strange application of morals to me in this situation. Like, I don't, why is that? You should do a raffle, like Michael should do a lottery to see who gets to go, because that's what's fair. Like, I don't... It
would make sense if Jack made... Well, no, that doesn't make sense. I'm trying to think about like what Jack's perspective on it would be. I also feel like he would probably be happy to be rid of Sawyer, right? I don't know. He doesn't... They don't particularly get along.
I just... It didn't... It was one of those things, too, where it's just like, this doesn't feel like it has a strong... Like, this conflict or Jack's POV here or how Jack is behaving has a strong identity to it that is cohesive and backed up by other things we've seen from these characters. Like, it just felt like kind of coming from out of nowhere, like, to make conflict, because they needed conflict here.
Yeah.
It didn't feel good. It felt somewhat confusing, and it pulled me out of being engaged because I'm just like, oh, this... doesn't feel like a natural thing happening that I'm viewing. It feels like some weird TV episode. Which that last episode that was so good, I was engaged in that so much. It pulled me in.
It like makes sense that Sawyer is like would do whatever to get on this thing. Like that makes sense.
It makes sense that we know Sawyer's been hoarding stuff, and it like they explain it very directly and clearly, and it makes sense. Michael's like, Sawyer had wire or whatever, and I needed it.
Yeah.
So, yes. And it's like, okay, that makes sense. I don't see the issue here, really. But
yeah, I don't know. Whatever.
Weird scene, bad scene.
Yeah.
Just bad.
Jack. Hurley. Said. Michelle. Lyra. Sawyer. Walt.
Son.
Jin. Michael. Lana. Vincent. Charlie.
All right, now it's nighttime. And Kate and Son are on the beach, and basically Kate is like, hey, why do you let your husband treat you like shit? And Son's like, well, he didn't used to treat me like shit. And then Kate's like, well, what happened? Why is it different? And then suddenly, people are running on the beach, and oh shit, the raft is on fire. And basically everybody's like, no, and they cannot, like, put it out. And
it's
then
on
Michael sees
fire.
It's not like, oh, there's a little fire. It's like this thing has been destroyed already. It's like blazing in flame. And then Michael like sees Son and is like, where the fuck is he? Where is your husband? Because he thinks Jin burned the raft.
Yeah.
Cut to commercial.
So tell me about how you feel about this scene.
I guess, I feel like I should feel more about it. Like, oh, the raft.
Me too.
Burned.
I don't care about
the
raft. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, that's like a real thing. But I guess like the raft has been so backgrounded.
Yeah, it's been very periphery. And also like, they haven't made me believe in the raft, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
This show is a show about being stuck on an island, so I don't... Maybe they would do this, and that would be actually surprising and somewhat cool. If Michael takes Sawyer and Walt and one other person, and they leave, and they're just fucking gone. And it's just like, oh, did they make it? Did they not? Who the fuck knows? They're just gone forever. They're not on the show anymore. That would be surprising cool. They're not going to do that, though, and I know they're not going to do that. So I was never invested in the raft at all, and they did no work to make me invested in it. So yes, when it burns, I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, they don't...
Whatever.
Right. There's no like characters talking about like putting their hopes in the raft, you know. It's like, I guess Michael like kind of says that like once or twice, But we
No, he
only ever
does,
see them
but we
working
don't-
on it as a background thing. It's never like a...
We also don't care
Yeah.
about Michael, and he's the one
That's
who
another thing, yeah.
who it's so tied to. Like, imagine, I would feel a lot stronger about it if Saeed was working on this raft. I would
Sure.
be more invested in the raft. But they haven't made us invested in Michael, so that's not an avenue that helps either. You're right. We should be caring more about this. This should
Even...
elicit an emotional reaction.
Because you would think even the characters on the island, maybe they would start being like, I can't go on the raft, but like they're gonna go on this raft and they'll send help back.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. They
Or
haven't
something.
discussed that at all, which you would think
nobody
that they would
has
be.
expressed that sentiment.
That even if it's like, okay, it's gonna be Michael, Walt, Sawyer, and whoever the fuck else, and like, oh boy, are they gonna make it? We hope they make it. We're gonna get rescued, maybe. Blah, blah, blah. You're totally right. Like,
Yeah.
Also, the son Kate stuff was terrible.
Yeah.
It was Kate just being like, stop being abused.
Yeah.
Like,
that is
it's
like
bizarre.
literally what's happening. Yeah.
And then Michael, I felt like, this isn't a big gripe, especially in this episode. I'm willing to leave it be, but I felt like Michael jumped to the it was Jin conclusion pretty quick. Which I guess, he's got beef with Jin, so maybe that's just his frame of mind. He's also not a very reasonable person, so maybe that's double his frame of mind. But
yeah.
When he was like, where is Jin? Jin did it. I'm like, really? Like, I don't feel like I know that Jin did it.
I feel like it tracks for how Michael is written, which is bad.
Dumb?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that's a good point. I guess, yeah, you're right. And it was just, that was coming to contrast with my feeling, which was like, what?
For sure.
And I also think that, it's not, how to say this, right? We've talked about this before, too. I don't believe that Michael was written this way and that as an audience, we were supposed to go, oh, Michael's kind of dumb, and that's why he's jumping to this conclusion so quick. I feel like the audience is supposed to be on board with Michael's conclusion.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm wrong about that. I could be wrong about that, but that's what it feels like to me. So I feel even more removed because I'm like, this is where the audience is supposed to be, and I'm so not there.
It this whole episode, it never feels believable to me that Jin would do this. And it doesn't.
Because why would he?
Yeah, it's like he attacked Michael that one time. That sucked. But he didn't attack
That was
Michael
over a
this
discernible
time.
thing, too.
Yeah.
That was over a very specific thing.
They learned what it's about, and he hasn't. I mean, he generally has been shown to he helps get food for everybody.
He keeps to himself and provides food sometimes.
He's not doing things that are counter to the group. Right?
There's been
He's
no
not,
suspicion about him with anything either. It's not like, oh, some of our water's going missing, which they haven't talked about forever, which is fine because they have water now. But it's not been like that thing where they're like, maybe it's Jin, and we don't know. None of that. So to jump on it now, it felt phoned in and lazy, and nothing was set up, and we were just being told shit. It just sucked.
All right, so then basically this scene just resumes after the commercial break, and it's Michael freaking out, yelling at Son, where's your husband? And everybody's like, she doesn't understand you. And Michael's like, nah, but anyway, where's Jin anyway? And that's kind of it.
It's also dumb. I'm sorry. It's also dumb for everybody else to be like, she doesn't understand you. Because if Michael is gesturing wildly, yelling, and Jin's name, she knows, even if she didn't speak English, she knows what the point is there. This episode sucked.
Yeah, everybody's freaking out. Jack and Sawyer are trying to... Well, Sawyer seems like he's on board with the Jin doing this thing?
Which...
I don't know.
Which is why it feels so... Which is why it doesn't feel like we're supposed to be reading Michael as jumping the gun on it, because other people are agreeing with him. It feels like we're supposed to think that too. And I'm like, you did not make me think that.
Jack is like, hey, can we chill out about saying that Jin did it? And Sawyer Charlie is also
yeah, no, exactly. That's the problem.
Jin
Everybody's in on
did it.
Yeah. And I'm like,
very weird.
If you all want this to happen, you need to write things that happened before it to make me believe. You can't just throw stuff, you can't just do this and have me think it's acceptable.
It's really weird. It's very weird.
It's just it is very bad writing. I'm sorry. It just is.
Okay, so then we cut from this scene to a bit later, and Jin is at the caves, and he's going through the medical supplies. And then Sun runs into him, and she's like, what are you doing? And Jin's hands are all burnt and shit. And then basically, like, the two of them kind of get into an argument around it.
Does he say anything to her even?
Basically what happens is, what she says is like, did you do this? What the fuck? Michael was trying to get us off the island. And then Jin is like, Michael? And it's like in quotes in the subtitles.
It's a callback to their previous argument about him asking about her and Michael.
Yeah.
And it sucks, because that one sucked too. And calling back to it sucks, because we don't get any explanation from Jin about why he thinks that, or what evidence he has, or how he, perceives it in his own episode.
The slapping thing, it's very weird that he thinks.
It's very weird. It's so bad. Also, he's there with his burned hands and stuff. And instead of being like, oh, damn, I guess I was wrong and he did do it. I'm now just like, I'm confused because he definitely didn't do it.
Like, it's not convincing. And
yeah.
Again, this is another point where it's fucking, isn't this supposed to be Jin's episode? Shouldn't we be seeing these events from Jin's perspective?
Oh my god, yes we should.
Because it's very weird that it's like, oh, we're not sure what he did.
I think the problem, and it's got to be this, right? Like, there isn't another answer, it just has to be this. The problem is that Jin is Korean, right?
Yeah.
So, like, fuck that character. We don't care.
I guess. It's, like, really weird. Because it's, like, we get more understanding from, like, Sun's perspective. But it's, like...
Yeah.
I mean, like, in her episode, at least, right? And...
Yeah.
I mean, even here, this episode is more from Sun's
this
perspective
episode we
than
get
Jin's
more
perspective.
from Sun's... Yeah, we do. Which sucks! Why?
I know. Because it's very obvious Jin didn't fucking do it, it would create more dramatic tension if we saw him try to put out the boat and then, like...
it would!
Maybe from his perspective, we see Michael, like, freaking out, where the fuck is Jin? And then Jin is like, oh shit, they're gonna try and, like, mob up on me, and he, like, he flees. That would be more interesting, right?
Because we get to feel fear and concern for Jin, knowing that he didn't do it, and that what they're going to do to him.
Yeah, maybe
unfairly.
We can get into his head and, like, actually start sympathizing with this character, because he's isolated, he can't defend himself, blah, blah, blah.
Instead of being tried to convince to have feelings against him for no reason. Like, it's so strange.
It's really weak.
Okay.
Fucking...
Flashback. Boss man, Sun's father, tells Jin, you need to go. The factory's been shut down by the shitty secretary of the environment or whatever. Go to his house and tell him that I'm very disappointed. And Jin's just like, all right, I'll do that.
Yeah. And then he shows up there at the house of this environmental guy, and it seems like at first this guy's like a little freaked out, and he has Jin in, Jin sits down for a drink or whatever, and then he's like, oh, I gotta tell you, my boss is not happy. And then this guy's like, oh, that's it? Okay, whatever. Anyway, bye.
He's expecting violence.
Yeah.
And this episode sucks. The secretary guy is expecting violence, or at the very least, threats of violence, and receives none of that, and is overjoyed that he receives none of that, and then sends Jin on his way with his daughter's puppy, which is the puppy we saw in Sun's flashbacks.
Yes. Yeah.
And it sucks. It sucks for me because big bad boss man, gang boss of some sort, or whatever, right? Crime boss man.
Some kind of... Yeah.
Sends Jin, who, from everything we see, has absolutely no notion of the criminality involving Big Boss Man.
It seems like he believes everything is legit.
Yeah.
Right.
He thinks this is just a business guy. And so he's very confused when the guy's all scared and stuff.
Yeah.
And this is a small spoiler, whatever. Who the fuck cares? This episode's shot anyway. But, later, Big Boss Man is really mad at Jin because he's like, you didn't deliver my message right. And I'm like, well... You sent a normie
why didn't you send a thug to do it, right?
Or indoctrinate's not the right word, but yeah, train up Jin into what you are expecting from him and need from him, instead of just... Right. It was bizarre. That is not... It's very so strange.
It's very bad mob boss stuff. It's like, instead of sending fucking, like, the guy with, like,
the enforcer,
the eye that he lost in prison, who's
Yeah.
got, like, brass knuckles in his pocket and shit.
You sent your tax lawyer.
Yeah, you're like, hey, Bob from accounting,
Yeah.
can you go down and, like, warn this guy, this government guy?
But
Like,
not even warn, just literally, hey, Bob from accounting, can you just tell this person that I was disappointed? And Bob's just like, sure, okay. And he goes up and
He's
says,
like-
hey, my boss is disappointed. All right, see ya. Like, it would be very, very stupid, bad crime boss behavior. It's so unbelievable. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
Why did they write this? It makes no sense. Like, why would you
Because-
write it this way?
what I got the impression was happening from Sun's episode, or maybe this was like what I believed was happening, like in my memory of this, is more that like Jin gets sort of like, and this is kind of what happens, but not really, that Jin sort of gets like extorted into doing like the shitty, like grimy work for Sun's dad because of like the power dynamic, right?
Jin's not a bad guy.
Right.
Jin wanted, totally kosher job to whatever. And Jin's not a terrible person willing to do these terrible things. But he got sucked into it. I'm down with that narrative. But this is
Right.
not how you write that fucking narrative. Because
They don't
makes
end up
no goddamn sense.
right, because like it would make more sense if it like
You
later
send
on.
you send Jin with the enforcer.
You're right.
The enforcer does the enforcing, and Jin is like, what the fuck have I gotten myself into?
Right. And Jin
Like-
is just like maybe the driver or some shit. And then like the son's dad is like, well, this is what you're doing now. Like that's
Yeah,
just-
like, this is the business. This is your job. You've seen it now. Yeah.
and then like that would make like the next scene that happens with them, which I actually kind of like, but I don't know. We'll get into it.
was
Whatever.
Yeah. Well, but this way, it makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
It's like
It's
you tell
very-
somebody, hey, kid, here's a couple dollars. Go buy me a Snickers from the corner store. The kid comes back with a fucking Snickers, and you go, what the fuck is this? Where's my Uzi?
Right.
And it's just like, what? Like,
Yeah, it's like, of course he didn't get the memo, because, like, this guy just owns warehouses or whatever. It's not like Jin has been working with a drug dealer. He's not, like, aware of that there's shady corruption and shit happening.
This episode sucks. The more I'm
It
talking
kinda
about it, I'm like,
sucks.
yeah, it's mid, I guess, but, like, somehow
It's like-
all of the mid is terrible mid.
The thing is that, like, watching it, it feels very nothing, and then when you reflect on it, you're like, yeah, that was fucking dumb. And just...
You're right. It feels, the impression was mid because emotionally it's entirely flat.
Right.
So that's what you feel coming out of it. And then you start thinking about it and you're like, wait a minute. Cognitively, this is dog shit.
Yeah. Okay, the next scene that happens, basically Saeed runs into Boone, and Saeed's like, hey, I'm gonna, like, fuck your sister, is that alright? Boone's like, actually, my sister, sucks, and, you know, whatever. Do whatever you want, loser.
Yeah, she uses men, then you're
Yeah.
being used. Yep, that's the scene.
That's it.
Moving on.
Yeah, there's not really anything to say about it.
There's nothing
The next
to say
thing
about it.
Then it just cuts to Sawyer fucking finding Jin, and fucking he's gonna beat him up.
Yep.
Alright, and then we cut.
Oh, God.
Two.
This is so bad. Okay, we cut to Saeed going up to Shannon and being like, maybe we should just be friends.
That's basically what happens.
That's what happens. And then next, these are so short too. It's just like short, shitty, nothing scenes.
Yeah. This is just a dumbass conflict. This is just a dumbass conflict that Boone says some shit to Saeed, and then Saeed's like, oh, maybe that's the problem. Like, maybe she's using me or something. The thing that's fucking annoying is that, like, there's...
Well, so Saeed has really, in the past, and this is something that they did establish and build up, so I gotta give him credit for that. We've seen that Saeed really respects Boone's opinion, right?
Yeah.
Like,
he believes that
What?
Boone is a really trustworthy, generally competent...
yeah, knowledgeable, intelligent person who has valid opinions.
Yeah.
What
It's so
the fuck?
Yeah, like, why does he give a shit about what Boone thinks?
First of
at
all, why does he go to tell Boone at all? Why is he speaking to Boone, period? Okay, fine. It's some sort of sense of, like, he does say, like, I'm not asking permission, I'm telling you. Fine, sure, do that, whatever. I don't give a fuck. But I feel like once Boone says anything, Saeed's just like, yeah, I'm just going to do stuff because I am more confident in my own interpretation than yours. So, like, toodles, loser.
Yeah, it's weird that Saeed gets shaken by what Boone says.
He doesn't even get shaken. He gets demolished. He gets... I'm not saying he's emotionally demolished, but it does immediately and entirely end his interest in Shannon. He goes, okay, Boone, 100%. I will go...
Yeah, and then immediately
let Shannon know,
like...
that I have no interest anymore.
And it's just so lame. And then, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. Here's the thing that's upsetting to me about this is that, like, there's actually room for interesting drama here. The fact that Shannon's relationship to men has a lot been about that.
It has
been very utilitarian. If this was interested in Shannon's perspective, it actually would be really cool to see her grappling with, like, oh, I have these kind of habits in my relationship with men.
Yeah.
But I actually feel something about this guy.
And I don't want to ruin it. And I don't want to slip into my old,
Yeah, and, like, something where, oh, those conflicts of these old habits, and that's actually, like, interesting, you know? Because, like, it's coming from a place of, like, actually, oh, it's her past.
It's about character growth.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually about, like, character growth and dynamic and, like, changes as opposed to just, like, whatever bullshit this is. Because this is the extremely, like, the standard third act romance movie bullshit conflict where somebody, like, misunderstands something and then they're mad at each other.
It's so easily resolvable, too. It's exactly. Like, this could be resolved in an instant. It was created in an instant, and it can be resolved in an instant. Whenever the fuck you want for it, you can have it go as long as you need or as short as you need. You're right, it's boring. It's so fucking boring.
It's also, like, I'm interested in Saeed's history, like, with romantic or sexual relationships, too, right? Because,
I'm interested in Saeed's sexual history, yeah.
Yeah, you're interested in being included in Saeed's sexual history. But basically, like, I mean, he's from Iraq, which is, like, culturally very different, right? So, like, and it's also, like, was he maybe in love with the woman who he, like,
I felt like he was.
Yeah, I felt like that was kind of telegraphed, like, that
he'd still be kind of holding on to that, too.
Yeah, like, could he have
That's
feelings
what I was
about
reading
that?
into it. Yeah.
Right? And that now there's, like, either or both of those are, like, actually compelling, but instead we get this, which is just fucking stupid. Like, it feels like they were just like, we want to get them together, but we need some kind of conflict. And they just went with, like, the dumbest, like, the thing that you can put the least thought into.
It's boring. It's insulting to the audience's intelligence. It's very weak. It's not compelling emotionally or story-wise or character-wise. It's a big ol' pile of shit.
It is, and it's also interesting, like, these two characters probably have very different histories with sexuality and relationships.
Yeah.
And that's cool, right? That could be interesting, that they have these two very different histories, and they have to meet
navigating
together.
that. Yeah. And it would produce misunderstandings due to assumed things that the other's not assuming. Blah, blah, blah. Like, actual tension and stuff. Yeah, it also just makes me sad again that it's like, we could have just had them be platonic.
Yeah, that too.
Like, why are we going through all this? Just...
So then, anyway, Shannon's upset about this conversation, just like me. And she storms off to go yell at Boone. And then runs into Locke and is like, hey, where's Boone? And then Locke's like, I don't know. This is like a Locke scene. Do you have thoughts on this one, or are you just like, whatever?
No, I'll talk about this, because I'm excited to talk about Locke, at least. He gives us a brief respite from the fucking terrible episode, in my opinion. So yeah, she's like, where's Boone? What did he say? Blah, blah, blah. And Locke is just like, yo, I don't know. The fuck? And then she says, I forget if she says, like, you know, tell him I need to talk to him, or tell him to stay out of my business, or whatever. And Locke's just kind of like, all right, sure. And then he looks at her and he kind of does his wise Locke man shit at her, which I still love. It might get old soon, but it hasn't yet. And he talks about basically like, you're a grown woman. Why are you so fixated on what Boone is thinking? This island is a fresh start. And by being so concerned about Boone, you're just giving him what he wants, which is your attention. And that's basically it, right? I don't really remember how it resolves.
That's
She
basically
just kind of
it.
like walks off, right? Yeah. It was great. I really like Locke here.
I like he's doing his wisdom thing. He's eating a rat.
Yeah, he's doing... That's right. She's like, ooh, that's gross. And he's like, no, that's dinner. And it's genuinely pretty solid advice. But also, you never can trust him when he says it. Even if it's good advice, it's always still just like, does sound like good advice, but you seem like you have ulterior motives still, weirdly.
Yeah.
And it's just a really good performance. And
yeah, he's great.
I'm happy to watch this. This was a scene where I at least was like, I had a good time watching this scene. Genuinely, I did. Like, it doesn't save the episode or anything, but I was like, cool, Locke.
Yeah, Locke does a lot of work in the scenes he's in, for sure.
God damn, he fucking carries the scenes he's in. In this episode, at least. Like, so hard.
He often does that, yeah.
Why are you out here?
Think I'm going crazy.
Why are you out here?
Think I'm going crazy.
Why are you out here?
Think I'm going crazy.
Crazy people don't know they're going.
Think I'm going crazy.
Okay, what happens next? Sawyer has Jin like tied up, sort of, and his wrists are tied or some shit. And he's like, "Hey, man, fuck you." But basically, that's it. I don't know. And then we have a flashback. Basically, Sun made Jin a huge, delicious dinner, and he's about to dig in, but then keeps getting a phone call. And it turns out it's his boss. And he goes to meet with his boss. His boss is like, "Hey, fucking idiot. You're supposed to, like, threaten, like, make this guy an offer you can't refuse, basically. So I'm gonna send that guy," and then there's, like, obvious...
A big man.
Yeah, obvious, like, murderous gangster guy. I'm gonna send that guy, and you're gonna go with him so that you can kind of learn on the job, you know? I'm gonna get you some workplace training here. Is there anything to say about those little parts before I get into, like, the next part?
Not a thing.
So then they're in the car. Jin is driving this guy, and this guy's like putting fucking gloves on and like getting. I think he has a gun or something, but
Yeah,
he's at least
putting
like
a silencer on a gun.
Yeah, in the back seat, and he's like, "Okay, you're gonna wait in the car, and I'm gonna go inside, and when I come back, we're gonna fucking get the fuck out of here." And then Jin like parks and immediately like gets out of the car, runs inside. He like kicks the door open to this guy, and then like beats the shit out of the government guy, and he's like, "You're gonna do the shit that my boss wants you to do, okay, motherfucker?" And then he, like, whispers in his ear, like, "I just saved your life." And then he, like, leaves, or whatever, with the gangster guy.
Yeah, gangster guy kind of gives, like, a praising look, I guess, of, like, yeah, he did it.
Yeah, Jin's
Cool.
like, he got the message, or whatever.
Yeah. So this is the scene that you said worked a lot better for you. So
Yeah, I actually do like this scene. I think, like, it's just kind of well done, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree.
I think... it would have worked better if the stuff surrounding it was better, but I think generally Jin being like, "Oh shit, I'm gonna," like, I like his, like, quick thinking solution to this problem, and that he's, like, forced to do this, like the violence feels really intense and, like, sudden.
No, I totally agree. I think it on its own is a very good scene that if they'd done the things around it better would have just been very good. I think it still was very good. But yeah, and it gives context to... I'm not sure if we see it now or it flashes back.
It's like the next thing that happens, yeah. Is basically
it gives context to the flashback from Sun's episode of him coming in all bloodied and shit. So we get to learn in a cool, satisfying way that this, you know, this thing that we saw from Sun's perspective, and she's like, "What do you do for my father?" At that point, I was kind of getting the vibe of like, oh, this dude's like a gangster guy, and he like, this is what he does. But no, it's like this was the first time he's done it. He was reluctant to do it. He only did it because it was that or have this guy die. He's traumatized by it.
Right.
It gives cool context to something that we'd previously seen in one perspective, and now we get more context around it, and it's satisfying to see that difference. And yeah, it's just cool to see Jin. It does a good job of showing, not telling, that Jin isn't a terrible person. That he's in this hard spot, and he's trying to make the best outcome that he feels he can within that. And that's fun to watch.
Yes, it's like this part is the best part of that. I would say, you know, in addition to the scene just being like well done, it's also because like we're really in Jin's perspective, right?
Totally. Yes.
And that's like kind of what you want.
We feel the trauma of his experience.
Right. It's yeah. That part is good.
I don't want to talk about this beat shit. You talk about it. I don't want to talk about it.
what even, like, fucking happens here? So Sawyer drags Jin onto the beach. Everybody's like, hey, you motherfucker. They're all gonna fucking kill him. Jack's, like, telling people to calm down. Everybody's pissed at Jin. And then, like, Jin is like, he's basically, again, this is the thing where it's unsubtitled, right?
Yes.
So Sun shows up, and then Jin starts sort of talking to her, and then Michael's like, hey, motherfucker, shut up, talk to me. And then Jin's, like, saying shit to him, and his attitude seems like he's saying, all right, man, if you're gonna fucking do it, like that. But who knows what he's saying, because it's unsubtitled.
Which makes no fucking... But yeah, and he does it, like, he's getting punched, and he's not fighting back at this point.
Yes, he is not fighting back.
Yeah. And even, like, Jack tries to intervene, and what, like, Sawyer stops him, or Saeed maybe even stops him. It's like, no, it's just a one-on-one fight for them. And then Jack just drops out of it, which I guess if everybody else agrees, then, like, Jack by himself would get outnumbered, and it would be... the whole fucking... It sucked.
Everybody agrees they're just gonna let Michael kick the shit out of Jin.
Also, just, like, I wanted Jin to just, like... I feel like they don't know that Jin will just take the punches and not fight back. Again, I feel like we've seen this before. If it's Michael v. Jin, Michael's dying.
Right. Like...
How is everybody just like, yeah, Michael, go get him? Shouldn't they all be beating on him if that's the... It makes no fucking sense.
It's so weird. And then, like, it's just so stupid. And then eventually, you know, Michael's beating the shit out of Jin, and then Sun yells. She's like, stop, leave him alone. She yells in English or whatever, and then she's like, everybody looks at her shocked because she can speak English, and she's like, he didn't burn your raft, you fucking you fucking idiots.
You fucking clowns. Like, you dumbass motherfuckers.
Jack is like, why didn't you tell us that you speak English? Like, what the fuck?
As though that's the pressing need, also.
Yeah.
Like, we can get to that, Jack, but, like, we're on other stuff now.
Sun is just like, hey, what happened was the raft was on fire and Jin tried to put it out. And then Michael's like, why did he run away? Which, like, we didn't...
You fucking idiot!
See how...
Like, why did he... We obviously all thought it was him. Why did he not come to us and explain what happened? Not being able to speak it. What the fuck?
And then, so everybody
They're
still
all so stupid!
Everybody still doesn't believe that Jin didn't do it until Locke is like, hey, everybody, shut the fuck up. We're all yelling at each other. Even though it's very obvious there's someone else on the island and they burned down the raft. Like, where the fuck did Ethan come from?
This was great. Thank you, Locke. Thank Christ. Thank you, wise man Locke, coming in and throwing down.
I do like that he's just like, hey guys, it's really obvious there's somebody else on the island.
Yeah, and like, we're not talking
can we just
about
say
it,
that?
but we know it. Yeah, like, can we get this out in the open, please?
Yeah.
I liked Locke coming in like that.
Yeah. I also like it because of what happens later, right? And
yeah,
that
no, totally.
what Locke says is like true, but it's all
100%.
But it's also not what happened to the raft.
Terry Quinn, very good performance. He's doing a great job at illustrating Locke here and just throughout the show. Like, it's great. He has a line where he says,
"Why would any one of us block an attempt to get home?"
And it's so good. The way he says it's so good because it's like, yeah, Locke. Why, Locke? Who would do that, Locke?
Like, yeah.
It's so good.
It's like the fucking Among Us alarm sounds, you know? Like,
yeah.
Why would anybody do that? No, everybody wants to leave. Don't mind that I'm, like, becoming one with the island or fucking whatever.
Yeah, don't mind that I'm having the time of my life. This is my fucking, like, destination or whatever.
Yeah. All right, so then it cuts to a bit later. Walt and Michael are at the raft, and Michael's like, I'm gonna build a new raft. And then Walt's like, okay, can I help? And Michael's like, all right, man.
Okay, I do want to give Michael, the character, some credit here, where it's due. He's very upset and angry, which is fairly reasonable, and he's like smashing shit or whatever. And then he sees how Walt is looking at him, and he takes a moment and changes his demeanor and talks to Walt about how it's okay, they're going to start over, and they're going to make a better one, because you just keep going. And that was a good parenting moment, both it's a good message to give to your child that, like, no, you know, you got to keep going and try blah, 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 whatever. And it's also him realizing, like, this isn't how I want my son to see me. I want to be better for him. It was good. Good. Yay. 2 thumbs up. It was still a boring scene that sucked, but, like,
it's like,
I feel compelled to say that Michael did a good thing here regarding Walt.
He didn't do the normal thing where Walt is like, you're going to build another raft, and then Michael's like, obviously, you fucking idiot.
You fucking dumbass. Yeah, I want to leave. Yeah.
And then Walt's like, why? And he's like, shut up. I'm not going to tell you why.
Yeah. But yeah, so I don't know. Credit there to Michael. Yay.
Yeah. And then we're back at the caves, and Jin is packing up all his shit, and Sun is just talking at him, being like, why didn't you tell me that you didn't burn it? So I guess, like, Sun assumed that he didn't burn it, but that's true or something.
It's so much of this episode is just like, I guess if I think about it, I can bend it to make sense, but, like, why are you, the writer, not presenting something that it feels like this is so weird. It feels like the narrative doesn't know what is going on with the narrative. Like, if you personify the narrative, that motherfucker is like 3 drinks in, you know?
Yeah, the narrative's like, we're doing it.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like they have they're not presenting a strong, clear chain of events that are compelling at all, but also just, like, clear. Like, it's strange.
So then Sun, while she's yelling at Jin, at one part she speaks in English and she says, I was gonna fucking leave you, but then you convinced me to stay because I thought you were gonna be different or whatever.
You know what I was so ready for at this moment? I was about to lose my mind and be so, like, happy and shit. If Jin had also secretly learned to speak English and knew what she said, I would have been like, what?
That would have been dumb as fuck, but also very entertaining.
Yeah,
that would have been
I was so ready.
Really fucking entertaining.
For her to have her, like, English confessional to his face that she knows he can't understand, and him just be like, reverse Uno. Fuck you. I would have been like, holy shit. Like,
or what if he,
it would have been incredibly dumb, but it would have been given me emotion.
What if he starts responding in, like, classical Latin? And then she's like, and then she understands that, and she starts speaking in, like, caveman grunts.
They just keep going.
Yeah, like, having, like, more and more confessions where they reveal they know more and more languages. They start signing, like...
Anyway, yeah, I was so ready for that. But it didn't happen, because, of course, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Then his son is talking to him in Korean again, and is like, basically, she says, like, can't we just start over, basically, right? Like, I want to go back to how it was.
That is important.
Can't we start over?
That she says that. And then we cut to the flashback of Jin going to visit his extremely alive father. Surprise.
Wow,
who's
shocking.
Just like a fisherman.
Oh my goodness. I didn't know that Jin's father was totally alive and just Jin was ashamed of him. That wasn't I'm shocked.
And then Jin is like, anyway, Dad, sorry I was ashamed of you because you're poor. I don't know, I'm kind of fucking up my whole marriage and shit. And then Jin's dad is like, why don't you stop doing that?
Yeah, he literally is just like, well, maybe just don't, dude.
Yeah, have you tried? Like, he's like, son, this sounds like a skill issue to me.
I actually like his dad here. I don't know, I got good energy off his dad.
I wish, like, maybe there had been more... It's just, it sucks how...
His dad is so chill. He's like, oh, yes, you were ashamed of me, pretended I was dead, didn't tell me about how you were married, and are now telling me all of this. And I'm just smiling away, being like, yeah, I'll help you with your relationship issues. Maybe don't be an asshole. Yeah. And I'm like, this dude seems so full of, I don't know, forgiveness and joy. And he's smiling and he's happy to see his son. And I'm like, this dude rocks. This dude's so cool.
This is actually an episode that maybe could have benefited from the first flashback being like a Jin childhood flashback. Maybe he's like, where he's like ashamed of having like a poor dad, and his dad, he thinks his dad is an idiot for being so happy and just like enjoying life.
Or
and then it comes full circle in the end.
Younger Jin, like leaving the house for the last time. You know what I mean? Like,
something so that this relationship.
You could keep Daniel Day Kim and just have young him up a bit or whatever the fuck.
Right.
Yeah.
I
agree.
Something.
Yeah, it felt very. The value I got out of the scene was not the connection between them. It was just, I thought his dad was really funny.
And so then Jin is basically like, so anyway, we're going to America, and then we're going to come back. And then his dad's like, hey, idiot, why don't you just, like, leave the job that sucks and just be with your wife in America?
Yep.
So I guess, and then it cuts back to the island. And then Jin is looking at Sun, and then he's like, it's too late. And then he walks away from her, and she's sad.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, like, I just, like, don't want these two together because he's abusive.
Yeah.
And also because, like, they just didn't sell, like, the early part of their relationship
At
where
all.
it feels like they're good for each other or something.
Yeah.
Like,
I was not ever feeling the love. I never felt
Yeah.
the love between them.
Like, the actors portray it and stuff, but, like, there's never anything that's sort of where I'm like, oh, yeah, it makes sense that they, whatever. Like, so I kind of, like, don't care that this is what happens.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's
Basically
a
it.
weird... the person I have the strongest connection to in this situation is Sun, right? And
Yeah.
I do feel for her in this spot of wanting so desperately to just go back to when she had a good experience with it and not being able to have that. I did
Yeah.
experience some sympathy for her there, for sure. But you're right that I am not invested in their relationship. I'm like, yes, Sun, this will suck for you, and hang out with cool people and you'll get over it. You and Kate can have some gardening time.
Yeah, seems like it's for the best. All right, so now we're going back to Saeed and Shannon.
Yeah.
Saeed's at the fire. It's dramatic and romantic, and then Shannon comes up and kisses him, and he's like, "What?" And she's like, "I like not listening to Boone."
Yeah.
How you feeling about this as we reach the culmination of this plot line?
I think that I said before that I was thinking maybe the writers were on a deadline or something. They were really in crunch time, or they had somewhere to be. And I think this scene really demonstrates that because they just decided, yeah, we don't actually need dialogue either. It scene sucks. They just, nothing gets resolved. They don't even do the fucking work of resolving the dumb thing. Like, I like that Shannon says everybody gets a new start on the island because that's something Locke says. And I like it when people say stuff that Locke says because then I'm like, ooh, that was what Locke said. I hate that they're kissing. It's bad. And I hate the way that it was depicted as the resolution to their conflict. That was also bad.
Yeah, can't wait to see this continue.
I'm sad about that. It's not even that I like Saeed and I don't like Shannon. And I'm like, Saeed, you shouldn't be with Shannon because I think she's dumb. I like
Right.
Shannon. I
Yeah.
do, actually.
I think the fact that they have a kind of relationship is good. It's cool.
And independently, I like them both. We don't need this. This is so forced and unnecessary and it feels sterile. Like, it's just not good at all.
I can't believe that somehow the Kate Sawyer relationship is the one that I'm the most interested in.
Oh, God. You're not wrong.
Like, somehow that is the one that has become... because the last episode was pretty good.
It feels like cheating because they had a pivotal scene for their relationship in the really good episode.
Is that cheating, or is that just it being good?
No, I genuinely think it's... If we are personifying relationships as competitors of some sort, the relationship itself, I do think it's cheating because it's like, that's not fair. Your pivotal scene came in the episode with some person who was writing well. And mine got dumped in this one. That's not fair.
The unfair advantage of being written well.
It's like if two golf balls, if there's two golf balls, they're like, let's compete, see who can get a better golf score. One of them I'm hitting, the other one Tiger Woods is hitting. That's not fair. It's not a fair competition.
Yeah, that's one way of viewing it.
Yeah. So, I also just don't like it, but I do think it's interesting to, honestly, I want to maybe take a moment and look back on stuff that happened in that episode if we encounter more things that episode has relevance to going forward, and seeing if I feel stronger about them just because they were depicted well in that one episode that was a fucking gem.
I guess we'll see.
If they'd had somebody else write it or whatever, that writer is having a worse day, that I wouldn't feel strongly about them. It just feels like fluky. It feels like, because we went back to this immediately, it feels like such a fluke to have that great episode.
Yeah. At least this one is, like, mostly middling.
No, I disagree. I actually have changed my opinion. It's not...
You've turned on it?
Well, yeah, because I mentioned before, emotionally very flat and middling. But as a piece of writing, it's much, much, much worse than mid.
They missed a lot of opportunities with this one.
No.
to do something that
I mean,
was
they
good.
did. No, they did do that. But also, they didn't just miss opportunities. They also did things that were baffling for no reason.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not just missed opportunities. Like the thing, it doesn't matter. The thing with Sun's dad, where he sends this normal person to go beat somebody up without telling them, I want you to beat them up. That's not a way to write something.
I like that he's just a really incompetent crime boss. It's that, or like, I like picturing like every day Jin is going into work and is somehow oblivious to like more and more obvious like signs that they're doing crime. They're like, hey, can you load this big black bag into this trunk? And Jin's like, okay, boss.
So here's the thing. That's very funny. I do like that a lot. It's like the crime boss assumed Jin would do what he was told because he's like, I've been putting you in these situations this whole time. Of course you know by now, right?
Uh-huh.
That's really funny. The thing is, it's the same as your fucking Kate is a freak theory.
Yeah,
You're doing
it's not
so much
real.
work. You're doing so much work to make something and twist it and bend it and splice it into something funny.
Yeah.
That isn't there. So the writers do not get credit for that.
Kate is a Freak has more canonical support, actually. Like,
Yes.
she does
does.
like a bad boy, canonically. That's just real. Like,
Yeah.
so
There's something there for the Kate is a freak theory.
like if she had been the one talking to Sawyer and being like, oh, we should bring some rope out and whatever, it would have sucked still, but at least it would have made sense.
It would have been not jarring. Yes, it would have been icky, but it wouldn't have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh well, fuck it.
Anyway.
let's get to the good scene. There's a good scene. It's so good.
Yeah, at the end. So, would you want to walk us through this scene?
No,
You're
I don't.
stoked about it.
I want you to do it.
Okay, here's what's happening. Walt is like playing some backgammon, and Locke's like, "Hey, you got someone to play against?" And Walt's like, "Well, Hurley owes me $83,000.
Funny line.
I told him he could win it back." And then Locke, sits down and he has this nice little conversation. Locke pets the dog, and sort of the two of them, Locke asks about like Michael, and then Walt is like, "Hey, do you have a dad?" And Locke's like, "Yeah, my dad. He sucks." And Locke actually he sounds very like serious about that. Anyway, so the two of them start playing backgammon, and then Locke asks Walt, "Why'd you burn the raft?" And Walt's like, "I've been moving around my whole life, and I'm sick of it, and I like it here." And Locke's like, "I like it here too." That's that scene.
Yeah, it's really good. The Locke scenes in this episode have been great. Locke has been mostly great throughout the series. I like how he treats Walt. It's just a really, really nice scene.
Yeah, and I like this little twist.
Yeah, that it was Walt. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
It's not a hacky twist. I can buy into it well enough.
Mm-hmm.
It did kind of come out of left field, but that's okay. They didn't set it up really at all, but that's fine. But yeah, I thought the twist was satisfying.
Yeah, it makes sense. So you're not like, what? You're more like, oh, what? What?
Yeah, I was like, whoa. And then you see it and you're like, okay, whoa, cool. Instead of, it's not like Walt was just, Locke goes, "Why'd you burn the raft?" And Walt goes, "I wanted to play backgammon more and wouldn't let me bring backgammon with me." It's not some dumb shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, great scene. I think it's funny to think about like how successful the raft would or wouldn't be. And that this might ultimately have just been like a good move by Walt of like saving himself and Michael by burning the raft. That's funny to me to think about. It's not really important.
It could
for the
be
scene
self-preservation.
Yeah, it's just a funny thing to think about. Also, Locke, when Walt says, "I like it here," and Locke gets a kind of look on his face and kind of sheepishly says, "I like it here too." That was so cute and so unexpected. I was like, I did not expect cute Locke to show up here. Like, that was so unexpected. But he was so, like, I just thought he was really cute there. He was like, "I like it here too." It was really sweet.
Yeah, it's cool. That's good.
But it's so cool because it's sinister too.
It is sinister.
Like, they are continuing to hit on that cool and weirdly heartwarming or positive vibe, but like with some fucked up undertones with Locke, and I'm glad they are because it's entertaining.
Totally. He really is just kind of the highlight of the show.
Yeah. Particularly in this episode. Yeah, like there's other episodes with people who have great moments. Also, Saeed, Jack has good moments, Sawyer has great moments. But like all those people I just said, Saeed had a bad time this episode, IMO. Sawyer didn't have much except beating up Jin or whatever, and Jack didn't have much except just kind of floating around being a weenie. This episode in particular, it's like, total shit. Oh, here's Locke. There's a great scene. Total shit. Oh, here's Locke. There's a great scene. It's very, it stands out. It does really stick out in that way.
All right, and then at the end, Jin is helping Michael with the raft, and he says, he points at it, and then he's like, boat. Michael's like, yeah, it's a boat. And I guess they're repairing their dynamic. So Jin is going to help build a raft. And then we get the thing that we've been getting, a little musical montage. Hurley puts on his headphones. He's listening to the CD player or whatever. A little musical montage. Sun does a symbolic thing where she's wearing a bikini and, lets go of the shirt that was Jin's. And she's free now, but she's kind of sad. And it's bittersweet or whatever. And then, the song just, stutters and stops. And then Hurley looks at the CD player and is like, son of a bitch. And that's the end of the episode. What do you think about this little joke / omen at the end?
It's fine. It doesn't bother me. I'm not so into it, but it worked fine for me. What do you think about it?
I like it. I think it's it's a little funny, and I like that it's also kind of ominous in a way, because they're both from a meta layer of oh, this is where the happy montage music comes from, and it's gone.
Well, and also it is just a subtle reminder of time passing on the island.
Yeah.
And things getting further away from the world where you have a CD player and can listen to music.
Yeah.
We are continuing to move further away from that world.
I like that. I like I like it when objects are actual objects.
You've mentioned that, but we don't, I wouldn't bat an eye if next episode he's just listening to it again. I would not shock me. I'm not saying it will happen. I'm just saying this show doesn't have a good track record with that, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's certain things. I don't know. Has anybody finally gotten Jin's fucking his handcuffs off, or is he's still wearing those?
I think he's still wearing them, because I think I saw him while he was washing off in the water when Sawyer hits him, I think. So he's still wearing that. I think it's just the one on the one side. But yeah. I like that Jin extends a hand to Michael and helps with the boat. And also, beyond extending that gesture, also, just by saying boat, seems, to me, I read that as he's going to take more initiative than he has been, which has been none, to learn some words and communicate better. And I like that just in terms of, I would love to see Jin as a character in the show. I would enjoy that.
That would be fucking sick, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So I'm glad I'm glad we got that little moment at the end, because it does make me more hopeful for future episodes in terms of movement on that front.
Totally. It's also I'm glad that the various characters who Michael has had relationships with, where he just is angry at them all the time, I'm glad that that's been going away.
Yeah.
Because him and Locke, they seem chill now.
Yeah, they sorted out their dumb thing.
Yeah,
it was dumb, but at least it's over, hopefully.
Yeah, and so hopefully that's kind of happening here.
Yeah. That's that last scene. Closing thoughts. I was pretty mid on it, and then as soon as we started talking about it, I realized it was way worse than I thought it was. And that it just made me feel dead inside, which I interpreted as mid. My closing note on my little notes is literally just, Locke is this show's salvation, which I forgot I wrote, because I wrote that 3 days ago, but yep, it's true. It's true, me.
Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah, this episode, it felt so mid. It didn't feel too shocking coming off to the bat of the really good one, because again, it just felt mid, but just talking about it, I'm like, wow, that was just, from a writing perspective, kind of shockingly bad. Just in simple ways, it did not execute in a way that you would expect a professional writer to be able to easily execute.
Yeah, I feel like this episode, a lot of it does feel like they just
didn't care that much.
Yeah, almost. That's kind of how it feels, and it makes me kind of not care.
Yeah.
It feels like, I don't know, we talked about a couple of things where it's oh, you could have changed this and that would have made it more interesting, or small things or more radical things, putting it entirely in Jin's perspective for the episode or something. And I understand them having some reasons for not doing something that extreme, but still...
With viewership?
Yeah, but it's still fucking weird to not put the episode more in his perspective. If, like, the whole point of the show is that we're following these characters' specific perspectives one episode, right?
If we had pulled out the flashbacks from this episode and you were only shown the island parts, who would you have thought this episode was flashbacked with? Like, I don't think I would have said Jin. I don't know who I would have said.
No,
but
definitely not.
I don't know.
Maybe Sun again?
Yeah.
Maybe.
It ends with Sun's whole thing with the breakup and, yes, her being in
Right.
a bikini. And even a lot of the Michael tension is having to do with Sun and Jin.
Right.
I think you're right. It like, this felt like it just did not feel like a Jin episode in a way that it should have. And that others have felt like that. And it makes me wonder why.
Totally. Well, what are you looking forward to next week?
Next week, I'm looking forward to the return, like I said a bit, Sawyer, Jack. Saeed had a bad episode. Oh, fuck, Saeed. Oh, I'm not looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to Jin being a character. I hope they don't have this and have him start integrating himself into the group to a degree and then just immediately drop it and come back to it 3 episodes later. I want to keep on that momentum.
That would be cool.
I also want to, many episodes ago, there was this thing that was discovered. It was like this hatch in the ground.
Uh-huh. I vaguely remember that.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I just, maybe something's up with that. What about you?
I remember the next episode.
Oh.
I will say that.
That is either a good thing or a bad thing.
I'm looking forward to revisiting it.
That's either a good thing or a bad thing.
Also, like, people who have seen this show before will know what I'm talking about. But
that's either a good thing or a bad thing.
Do you want to take a guess as to which character it's going to be about?
Shannon. Well, wait a minute. I'm trying to think now. Because we got a tiny bit of Hurley in Jin's flashback.
Oh, yeah, I did like that.
Yeah,
I thought that was cute.
Hurley was on a TV screen, like, on the news.
Yeah, and it's like, wait, what?
And Jin was in Korea at this point, so it's not like local Australia recent. It's like, I hadn't thought about that part of it. So it's international news. That's interesting. And I'm also trying to think, like, the times we got Sawyer in Boone's flashback. Did we immediately then have the Sawyer episode? I don't think we did.
No, that one was like a setup for later.
Yeah. So I'm going to say not Hurley. I'm going to say Shannon.
It's Hurley.
Okay. Fine. That's fine. I'll take that. I don't like Hurley now, though. Hurley sucks. But, I'll take it still.
Are you excited for a Hurley-oriented episode? We'll find out. I'm excited to see how my feelings, if they ever remain the same or changed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited that either way it goes, it seems like it'll be more exciting than the middest piece of mid that ever did mid.
I think there will be more feelings from the next one, hopefully.
Yes. All right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
All right. Well, join us next time. We're going to talk about Season 1, Episode 18, Numbers.
Numbers?
Numbers. What could that mean?
Numbers. All right. Do the part where you say the stuff at the end.
We're on Patreon and socials, but we never post anything anywhere. But you could still go on there and just message us, I guess.
And, by the time you're listening to this, we might be.
Who knows, yeah.
If you're listening to this distinctly in the future of right now.
Yeah, we're at the Long Lost Pod on those places and on Gmail. And I am Dorkpunk with Q's instead of K's on Instagram.
And I only exist in real life.
Find Lana in the flesh. No, do not find Lana in the flesh. Okay, goodbye.
Bye.
See you next week. Bye. We're talking about how good this fucking episode is.